Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
Backstory. Many years ago, I opened my electricity bill to find it significantly larger than I normally paid. Upon closer inspection, I noticed they had added an electricity service at an address I had never resided at. I contacted the customer service line of the supplier to query the bill and advised them that I never lived in the address they had added to the bill. They advised me that they did not make an error and the bill stands. I was told I must pay the bill or it will be sent to collections. No amount of pleading had changed their minds, and the customer service officer did not give me an alternative. Note: to avoid this being too long, I will summarize conversations. And in order to connect electricity in our country, Australia, you need to advise them on your license number along with your date of birth and so on. I had coffee with my friend when I began sobbing about my predicament with the electricity. He asked me who would have access to my license details, and I then remembered that I hired a custom months earlier for a theme party, which required a copy of my license. We rang the costume shop. I asked the lovely owner of the costume shop if anyone had access to my license details. She asked why, and I began telling her my predicament. She was shocked and angry. She told me they had a break-in at her shop and lost some merchandise, along with a few copies of people's licenses. Lovely owner suspected the former employee of the break-in but didn't have proof. The former employee had been sacked due to theft previously. Not sure what she stole. My friend and I were on a mission, armed with the address details of where this person resided. We headed to the residence. Upon arriving, we decided to ask the neighbors in the apartment block about the person who lived in that apartment. Apparently, they have been evicted. The neighbor I spoke to gladly gave me the details of the rental agent. My friend and I turned up at the rental agent who let us know not only the name but when they were evicted. It was for unpaid rent. Bingo! We had proof. It was the same person who the lovely owner at the costume shop told us she suspected had stolen the costumes and licenses. We headed to the costume shop and advised the lovely owner of the proof we found, including contact details and the rental agent. For leaving the shop, she let us know that she's calling the police and telling them everything. I rang the supplier to advise them on our findings and let them know that there will be charges laid on this person for theft and identity fraud. Luckily, they wiped the bill after I submitted a legal statement to them with all the details. Lovely owner of the costume shop contacted me later and excitedly told me the person had been successfully arrested by the police.
Hey everyone, it's me, Lily. I'm 16, and I want to tell you about the craziest stuff that's been happening in our street. It's usually pretty chill here, but things got really wild recently. I was sitting one day on our front porch, scrolling through my phone when Mom rolled out in her wheelchair. She's been in it since her accident a couple of years back. We were just enjoying the quiet morning, you know? Then Mrs. Thompson from next door came over. She's cool, always giving me gardening tips. Morning, Lily. Morning, Sarah. She greeted us with her usual warm smile. Morning, Mrs. Thompson, I replied. Mom just nodded and smiled. Mrs. Thompson leaned in, lowering her voice. Have you heard about the new rule from the HOA? Mom says, no. What rule? They want all the houses painted in the same color scheme. Karen, the HOA president, is enforcing it strictly. That's ridiculous. We just painted the house last year. I rolled my eyes. That's so Karen. Just then, speaking of the devil, Karen walked down the street like she owned it. She's always wearing these fancy suits and acting like she's a queen or something. She said, "Good morning, everyone. I see you've heard about the new painting rule." Mom tells her, yes, we have. And we're not repainting our house. Sarah, it's for the good of the neighborhood. Uniformity is key. Our house looks fine. I won't waste money on unnecessary repainting. While you're violating the HOA rules, Sarah, there will be consequences. Mrs. Thompson tried to calm things down. Karen, maybe we can discuss this, but Karen was on a roll. No, it's high time everyone followed the rules. I'll be sending a formal note to Sarah. With that, she went off. Mom sighed and looked at me. Don't worry, Lily. We're not doing anything wrong. Mrs. Thompson says, I'll talk to some of the other neighbors, see if we can sort this out. The next day, I was helping Mom with her garden. Mom loves gardening. It's like her thing, you know? She says it makes her feel free, even in her wheelchair. We were planting some Madonna lilies, her favorite. Then out of nowhere, we heard this loud voice. That's against the HOA guidelines. Guess who was that? Yep, Karen. Your garden exceeds the allowed number of flower types. Mom just laughed. Karen, it's just a garden. Let it be. This is a violation. It's in a rule book. I whispered to Mom. Does she have anything better to do? Mom ignored Karen and kept planting. And that's when Karen started taking pictures of our garden with her phone. I said, seriously, lady? It's just flowers. Rules are rules, young lady. Maybe your mother should teach you that. Mom was getting upset now. Karen, go home. We're not doing anything wrong. Just then, our neighbor Mr. Dean walked over. He's this really chill guy, always fixing cars and stuff. He asks, what's all the fuss about? Karen turned to him. They are violating the HOA garden rules. Looks like a nice garden to me. Well, I'll be reporting this. And off she went. After she left, Mr. Dean shook his head and said, don't worry about her. You have a great garden over there. Mom smiled, thanks. I just wish she'd leave us alone. I was getting really annoyed now. Can we do something about her? She's like a dictator. Mom said, we will figure something out. But let's not let her ruin our day, okay? A few days after the garden showdown, I was in our living room doing some homework. And Mom was in the kitchen. And that's when we heard a knock on the door. I went to open it, and there stood Karen with this fake smile plastered on her face. Good afternoon, Lily. Is your mom home? Yeah, she's here. Mom, it's Karen. Mom came to the door, not looking too thrilled. What do you want now, Karen? Karen held up this color chart. I'm here to discuss the repainting of your house. I brought some color samples. We are not repainting our house, Karen. We've been through this. Sarah, you have to comply. It's for the aesthetic of the neighborhood. I couldn't help but butt in. Our house looks fine. Why are you so obsessed with this? Karen ignored me and kept talking to Mom. If you don't repaint, there will be fines. It's in the HOA rules. Mom's face got all serious. Karen, look around. Not everyone can afford to just repaint their house on your whim. I'm just enforcing the rules. This is not a matter of opinion, it's a rule. I said, rules that make no sense. Our house is fine. Karen then turned to me. Lily, this is an adult conversation. Mom sighed deeply. Karen, we're not repainting the house. End of story. Very well. You leave me no choice. She then turned and again walked away. The next week, Mrs. Thompson came to our house, and we all sat down. Mrs. Thompson, looking all serious, said, I've been hearing things, Sarah. Karen is spreading rumors about you, saying that you're a troublemaker and stirring up the neighborhood against you. Mom's face fell. I can't believe she's stooping this low. The next day, Mom called a neighborhood meeting at our house. She wanted to clear the air about all the rumors Karen was spreading. I helped her set up some chairs in our living room and made a bunch of snacks. Mom always says, nothing brings people together like homemade cookies. Soon, our living room was filled with neighbors. Mom wheeled herself to the front. Thank you all for coming. I know there has been a lot of talk about me and the HOA. Mr. Dean interrupted. Sarah, we all know you're not the troublemaker here. Mom smiled at him. Thanks, Dean. But I want everyone to hear our side. Karen's been spreading rumors that I'm refusing to follow the rules just to be difficult. That's not true. I believe in keeping our neighborhood nice, but I also believe in fairness and reason. Painting our house again so soon after the last time isn't reasonable. It's a financial strain and completely unnecessary. I want to live in a neighborhood where we support and understand each other, not one where we're afraid of breaking petty rules. Mrs. Thompson stood up. I say we band together and talk to the HOA board. Karen can't keep bulldozing over everyone. And everyone agreed. After the meeting, Mom looked relieved but also a bit worried. Then she said to me, I hope this helps. I gave her a hug and said, It will, Mom. You were awesome. But even as we were cleaning up, I couldn't shake off this uneasy feeling. Karen wasn't the type to back down easily, and I had a feeling she was going to come back at us even harder. And oh boy, was I right about that. So it was around noon and Mom and I were in the kitchen making lunch. And that's when we heard someone banging on our door, like really loud. I looked at Mom and we both knew it had to be Karen. When I opened the door, there she was, Karen, looking angrier than I've ever seen her. I need to speak with your mom. Now. Mom rolled into the hallway. What's the problem now, Karen? You've gone too far, Sarah. Rallying the neighbors against me? Undermining my authority? I tried to intervene. Karen, it's not like that. But Karen wasn't listening. She stepped closer to Mom. You're going to repaint your house. And you're going to stop this nonsense, or else. Mom didn't back down. Or else what, Karen? And that's when things went from bad to worse. Karen reached out and pushed Mom's wheelchair, sending her to the floor. What are you doing? I yelled. Mom also yelled, Karen, that's assault. Karen seemed to realize she'd gone too far. You provoked me. Mom was trying to calm down, but I could tell she was shaken. Karen, you need to leave. Now. Karen, looking a bit panicked, backed away. This isn't over, she said, before turning and walking away quickly. After Karen left, Mom and I sat in the kitchen, trying to process what had just happened. Mom, are you okay? I asked. I'm fine, Lily, but this has gone too far. We need to take action against Karen. The next day, Mom had called the police to report what Karen did, and they said they would look into it. We were sitting in our living room, still talking about what to do next, when my sister Emily stormed in. She's my big sister, about 22, and she's been always super protective of us ever since Dad died some years ago. Mom, I just heard what happened with Karen. I can't believe she did that. Mom tried to calm her down. Emily, it's okay. The police are handling it. But Emily was raging. It's not okay. She can't get away with this. Just then, we heard someone shouting outside. We all looked out the window and saw Karen in the street arguing with Mrs. Thompson. And Emily lost it. That's it. Emily, wait. Mom said that. But Emily was already out the door. I followed her, worried about what she might do. Outside, Karen was saying something about enforcing the rules and Mrs. Thompson was arguing with her. Emily walked right up to Karen. Karen, what the hell do you think you're doing? Karen turned to Emily and said, This is none of your business. You pushed my mother. That's very much my business. Your mother was being difficult. I did what was necessary. And that's when Emily really lost it. She grabbed Karen by the shoulders and shook her. You're a bully, Karen. A miserable, heartless bully. Karen tried to push Emily away, but Emily was too strong for her. They struggled for a moment, and then Emily swung and hit Karen. Not once, but twice. Karen fell back, her face now sporting two growing black eyes. Karen was holding her face. I am calling the police. You'll pay for this. Emily, still breathing heavily, let me lead her back to our house. She deserved it, she said. Mom was waiting for us looking worried. Emily, what have you done? I'm sorry, Mom, I couldn't let her get away with it. I know, honey, but violence isn't the answer. We will handle this the right way. We all sat down trying to figure out what to do next. The police will be here any minute, and things were about to get a whole lot more complicated. The police arrived not long after Emily had punched Karen. Two officers came to our door looking really serious. One of them said, We need to speak with Emily. Emily stepped forward. Well, that would be me. The officers took us into the living room. They asked Emily to explain what happened. Emily told them everything, not leaving out a single detail, even the part where she hit Karen. The officer, taking notes, looked up. You understand that assaulting someone is a serious matter? I do. I just lost my temper. She pushed my disabled mom. Mom added, I reported that incident yesterday. Karen has been harassing us for weeks now. The other officer, a lady, looked sympathetic. We're taking this all into account. We will need to speak with Karen as well. A couple of days after the police visit, we got a letter in the mail. It was from the HOA, but when we opened it, we realized it was more serious than just another complaint about house colors or gardens. It was a legal notice. Mom read it out loud. It says here that Karen is pressing charges against Emily for assault, and they are also fining us for not complying with the HOA rules. Emily said, I'm so sorry, Mom. This is all my fault. Mom hugged her. It's not your fault, sweetheart, but we need to talk to a lawyer. This is just getting out of hand. The next day, we went to see a lawyer. His name was Mr. Davis, and he seemed really nice. He listened to our whole story, nodding and taking notes. After we finished, he looked pretty serious. Well, this is a complicated situation. The assault charge is serious, but we can argue provocation, given Karen's behavior. What about the HOA fines? Mom asked. Well, HOA rules can be enforced, but they have to be reasonable. We can challenge them. especially given the circumstances. It felt a bit better having a plan, but I was still worried. This was like real legal stuff now. When we got home, Mom called Mrs. Thompson and a few other neighbors to update them. They all offered to help, saying they could be witnesses or whatever we needed. This next week was filled with lots of whispering and planning. Mom and Emily were on the phone a lot, talking to Mr. David, our lawyer. They were discussing our strategy for dealing with Karen's charges and the HOA fines. One evening, Mom called me into the living room. We've decided to take legal action against Karen and the HOA. I was surprised. Really? Like suing them? Yes, Mr. Davis thinks we have a strong case, especially after Karen's assault and the unreasonable HOA demands. The next day, Mom and Emily went to Mr. Davis's office to get the paperwork sorted. I had school, so I couldn't go, but I was anxious all day, wondering how it was going. When I got home, Mom and Emily were already there. Then Mom announced, "We filed a lawsuit. There will be a court date set and we will have to present our case. And so will Karen and the HOA." One afternoon, I was hanging out with my friend Zoe. We were walking our dogs when we bumped into Mr. Nelson. He's this older guy who used to be on the HOA board, but retired last year. So I greeted him. "Hey, Mr. Nelson." He smiled. "Hello, Lily. I've been hearing about your family situation. Tough times, huh?" Zoe added, "It's so unfair what's happening." Mr. Nelson looked around, then leaned in closer. "You know, there is something you might find interesting about Karen." We both leaned in, super curious. "What is it?" "Karen, she has a bit of a history with the previous HOA president. They had some disagreements." "Disagreements?" "Yes, about the direction of the HOA. Some say she wanted more control to push her own agenda." "What kind of agenda?" "Rumors were that she wanted to make this neighborhood more exclusive. She had plans for more strict rules, higher fees, and the previous president didn't agree." "So she's been trying to change things her way ever since?" "Seems like it. And it looks like she's targeting those who oppose her." We thanked Mr. Nelson for the information and hurried back home to tell Mom and Emily. When we told Mom, she said, "This makes sense. It's not just about the rules for Karen, it's about power." Emily added, "We need to let our lawyer know. This could help our case." Mom agreed. "Yes, we will tell Mr. Davis. This could be important." The next day, Mom and Emily met with Mr. Davis and told him everything we learned from Mr. Nelson. Mr. Davis seemed really interested. This could be crucial in showing Karen's motivations. I felt like we were finally getting somewhere, like we had a real chance at beating Karen as her own game. One evening, we were all in the living room. Mom was knitting, Emily was reading, and I was trying to focus on homework. But our minds were clearly elsewhere. Breaking the silence, Mom put down her knitting and said, "Girls, no matter what happens, I want you to know how proud I am of both of you." Emily looked up from her book. "Mom, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. You've taught us to be strong." I nodded. "Yeah, Mom, you're like the toughest person I know." Mom gave us a small smile. "It's not easy, but it's important, and we're in this together." After that, things went quiet for a bit, at least until the day of the trial finally came. We all got up super early that day. Mom was quiet, just sipping her coffee and staring out the window. Emily was pacing back and forth, looking really nervous. I was trying to eat some cereal, but my stomach was doing somersaults. At the courthouse, it felt super official and kind of intimidating. We met Mr. Davis there, and he looked really focused and assured us we're ready for this. The courtroom was packed. I saw Mrs. Thompson, Mr. Jacobs, and some other neighbors there to support us. And then there was Karen, sitting across the room, looking all smug and confident. The trial started, and it was a blur of lawyers talking, people getting called to the stand, and lots of legal jargon. Mr. Davis was really good though. He talked about how Karen had been harassing us, about the assault on Mom, and how the HOA rules were being unfairly enforced. Then Karen's lawyer had his turn. He tried to paint us as troublemakers, saying Emily's reaction was violent and uncalled for. My heart was pounding the whole time. When Mom took the stand, she talked about how we'd lived in this neighborhood for years, how we'd always tried to be good neighbors, and how Karen's behavior had escalated. Emily also testified, admitting she lost her temper but explaining how she was defending our mom. Then Karen took the stand. She talked about the importance of rules and tried to justify her actions, but when Mr. Davis cross-examined her, He brought up the information about her wanting more control over the HOA and her disagreements with the previous president. Karen got flustered and it seemed like she wasn't ready for that. After what felt like forever, the judge said she'd make her decision. We all waited, holding our breath. Finally, the judge came back. She said that while Emily's actions were wrong, they were provoked by Karen's aggression. She dismissed the assault charges against Emily, but ordered her to do some community service. As for the HOA fines and Karen's behavior, she ruled in our favor, saying the HOA rules were being applied unfairly and that Karen had overstepped her boundaries. I almost couldn't believe it. We had won. Outside the courtroom, Mom hugged both of us. Mrs. Thompson and Mr. Jacobs came over to congratulate us. "You did it, Sarah." They were really happy for us. Such good people. As we walked home, I felt this huge weight lifted off our shoulders. The next few weeks were peaceful. The HOA even elected a new president, someone much more reasonable and fair. The neighborhood started feeling like the friendly, welcoming place it used to be. And as for Karen, well, she kept a low profile after the trial. I guess she realized that she couldn't bully us around anymore. And also, I believe she wasn't trying to provoke us into suing her for pushing our mom in our home. So yeah, that's the end of our crazy HOA saga. Thanks for following along with my story. It's been a wild ride, but I wouldn't change a thing. It's made us who we are today, stronger, closer, and ready for whatever comes next.
A bit of context here. I'm originally from Syria and I spent around 7 to 8 months in Sudan, Africa. And that country being a third world country and super poor didn't have any good jobs, but at the same time prices were so cheap you can live with only around $100 a month. Rent, bills, food and water. But gasoline was expensive to the point you might need around $50 to $100 just for commuting to work. So it comes to around $200 per month if you're going to work by any kind of transportation. As for jobs, the best you can do without prior experience is either work in a restaurant or a factory for at most $100, which meant you had to be close to the job or get them to cover transportation. So around 5 months ago, I got in contact with a restaurant owner and talked with him about a job offer I saw. The job we talked about was being a warehouse manager for the restaurant. My shift starts at 8 a.m. and ends at 6 p.m. 7 days a week with only one vacation day per month. And I get one sandwich per day as lunch and one meal per week to take home. I asked about the salary and he said we will discuss it later. I asked how I will organize the warehouse and he said he will provide me with a laptop to work on later. I agreed to work a trial period of a week and then we will discuss the salary and see if it works. First day on a job, he hands me the keys of their warehouse and when I open it, I find a glorious mess. I asked my co-workers about it and they said no one has worked as a warehouse manager for the past few months. I go in and start looking at what we have in the warehouse and taking notes. Then I started a new Google account on my phone and made a new Excel sheet on it and sorted everything there. By the end of the day one, I had went through most of the things in the warehouse and I only have 2 words to describe what I saw there. Holy crap, it was such a mess that the workers didn't even know what they have in that warehouse, i.e., they need mustard and they don't find it the moment they look at the shelves, well, they buy a new box. And I can say for sure the warehouse was left like this for more than a year, because I found meat in the freezer that was expired since more than 2 years ago. I'm never gonna eat anything with meat in it from that restaurant. Second day on a job, I started actually doing my job by ordering new supplies, sorting the list I made on my phone by type so we can find items in it quickly, putting away the expired products and so on. During my second day and out of nowhere, the boss comes to the warehouse and gives me a list of everyone in a restaurant and tells me to take their attendance because the guy responsible for this is busy with the other things in the kitchen. I tell him I still don't know anyone in the restaurant, but he insists that I can just learn their names while doing my job. Okay, whatever. I'm trying to impress him the first few days, so I will do it. By the end of day 2, I had finished inputting everything into my phone, throwing away all the expired ingredients, and even taking attendance. All that's left is physically sorting out the warehouse to make it look better, and I will have done a great job and was hoping for a good answer from the boss. I go to discuss things with him at the end of my shift. I show him how I sorted everything on my phone and tell him that once he brings over a laptop, we can just move the file there and it's easy for anyone to check the inventory since it's on Google and all that stuff. Then I explained to him the state of the warehouse when I came and how much I worked to make it better. And he was really impressed and praised me for a job well done. Then I asked how much my salary will be. Your salary will start at $60, and then as you work, I will improve it and maybe in a few months you will reach $120. What? I can't afford to even stay alive until then. Transportation between here and my house alone is $50. Are you telling me to not eat or pay rent during this month? At least, but he cuts me off with an angry voice. If you don't like it, then you can just leave. I figured that he wasn't someone to be reasoned with, so I immediately answered, okay, and I left. Bullet successfully dodged. The next day, one of my co-workers there calls me asking where I keep the list of their inventory because he didn't find it, and I answered that there is no list. He was surprised and asked about the list. I showed the boss and I said, oh, that? It was actually on my phone. And he asked me to send it to him, to which I reply with, I'm sorry, but since I quit, I just removed the file from my phone. Have fun sorting through that mess. And I hang up. It wasn't that big of a victory, but at least I didn't give them the results of my effort for free, because it happened that my 2 days of work there were unpaid. It did. Some people are showing concern for me in the comment section, and I'm very thankful to you guys. Don't worry though. About a month ago, I moved from Sudan to Erbil in Iraq, and a week ago I found a good job which gets me a good enough salary to cover my expenses here and have some money left. So this one happened just a few days ago in my own town, and my partner's ability to do malicious compliance in real life cracks me up. So I wanted to share this one. For Christmas, I got my partner a Keurig. He's an avid coffee drinker, and before this, he had a Tasmo. But for personal reasons, we live in my mother's crowded house, and the Tasmo, while brand new when opened, came pretty much broken. But it's all he had access to, and it's all we could afford. The thing can't run without making a ton of noise. But I know my house too well and can honestly tell you, no one takes care of anything. Everyone uses my stuff and constantly breaks it or wrecks it in some way and are woefully unapologetic about it. I am just used to it. When I spent all this money on the Keurig, I wanted it just for my partner. Since my mother said no one else drinks coffee in the house. She wasn't really wrong. They, for the most part, drink barely anything caffeinated. However, recently, since the Keurig is left in the kitchen, we both come to realize that they had intentions of using the Keurig without our permission. Not that we would normally mind, but in the last 2 weeks alone, about 3 sinks of mine have been broken. We weren't taking that risk and moved it down to my room. It produced no smell and was making no fuss. But while out the other day, I received a text questioning where the coffee machine went. I know she's not that clueless, but she's talked to me about the Keurig before, when she was considering buying him one for Christmas. She just tried to play dumb so I wouldn't know she wanted it upstairs for them to use it. When I told her it was downstairs for convenience, she went off. It all boiled down to, it can't be downstairs in your room because I said so. And to make it look like it wasn't about using the machine, she even threw in some stuff about moving out if we wanted to live like we had our own apartment and whatnot. I was livid. My partner, however, determined that he wasn't going to let them use whatever Keurig pods they bought and that they wanted to tell us they had. So my partner brought his old Tasmo back upstairs. The look of my mom and her fiance's face was priceless. They looked so annoyed I wouldn't even speak to us nor say a word. They won't dare ask why the Keurig isn't upstairs. It's been about 2 days since then, and my mother still shoots us daggers whenever my partner makes coffee.